Good morning, everyone. It is Saturday, which means it's time for another Salty Saturday stream. Today, we are not only talking about the Rings of Power, we are also going to be talking about the latest entry into the Star Wars universe, aka Andor. We're going to be covering all 5 episodes that have been released thus far, and we are going to be covering so much today. Hopefully, you guys will stay awake through it because both these shows are incredibly boring to talk about and watch. So we're going to get started. But first, I just want to remind everyone that if you want to help support the show and you like what we do here, please throw us some super chats. We really appreciate your support. And we will stop everything that we're doing to address those super chats because we love you guys for that. So with me today is our expert panel of nerds. Ready to rock and roll about these 2 incredibly boring shows. Matt Vader 74, how you doing, buddy?
Rock and roll. Yeah, I don't know. You threw me with that one, and I can't talk today because I'm really got a goofy voice. I don't know what's going on, guys.
You're too busy covering all the Hindi comments that we're getting on our YouTube videos.
I can't. They won't stop. I know I got the names wrong, and we mispronounced a lot of things. Okay, I get it. But yeah.
And joining us specially this week is Culture Casino, who's making a great sacrifice to not only watch a show that he hates, but also talk about a show he hasn't watched. So, Culture, thank you for being here today.
It's not my fault. I mean, it's just at a certain point, you just the sleep factor hits, and it's induced by the show. But we'll get to that later on. But thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here. Plus, apathy. Maybe that's the right word.
Apathy is the correct word.
Yes, it's great to have you here. And joining us, as always, is our brother from another mother, Brian from the Popcast. How you doing, buddy?
What's up, brother? How you doing? I can't talk today either, but hey, I'm here.
Are you here and queer, though?
That's here and queer and ready to party. Dude, both these shows, by the way, are so boring that it's coincidental that we are now on Saturdays we're going to be talking about Star Wars Andor because we just made this big announcement that we are no longer talking about Star Wars Andor because there's nothing to talk about.
That's right. Well, we haven't talked about it yet, so we got 5 episodes of slowness to
yeah, we got an hour to film.
Someone needs to edit that like 8 hours down into like the only relevant 14 minutes there is. So
that's it.
And the All-Father himself is here, coming at us from his den of equity, I guess we'll call it that. Sporting the great beard, Odin from OMB Reviews. How you doing, buddy?
Oh, it's great to be back. I'm sorry it took me a while to get on, but for some reason I used Brave browser and it kept saying you must clear your cookies in order to sign in, and so I did, and it just didn't allow it, so I had to go to the good old Chrome browser, and it seems to be working now. But it's great to be back. Oh man, this episode, this will be fun, but
yeah,
glad to be back.
Yeah. And just fair warning to everyone in the chat, if we finish both of these boring episodes in time, we may talk about She-Hulk briefly because Culture Casino's chomping at the bit to talk about that show. But hopefully we won't have to do that. So I just want to give a quick shout out to everyone in the chat. Gavin Blackburn, thank you for being here. And our first comment. Mr. Farnsworth is here. Tim Hayes is in the chat. Anthony Mark, good to see you, Anthony. Orwell's son. Jack is here. Who else? We got Matt Vader 74, Joker Voice. And who else? Is that it? Daniel Hall is here. Penny, good to see you, Penny. Jillian N is here. And that seems to be Chris White, Input Latency, Dennis Wright. Thank you all for being here today. Really appreciate the support. And we're also starting off the show right with a 99-cent pound, whatever that is, super sticker from Gavin Blackburn. Thank you, sir. We really appreciate every little bit that you guys donate to us. We love it. Okay, so let's talk about the penultimate episode of Rings of Power.
Rings of Power.
Yeah, I believe it's called The Eye. And I'm just going to go through all the plot points that stood out to me, and then I'll throw it to you guys to talk about them. So first of all, we open up the show in the aftermath of the pyrostatic outburst from Mount Doom. Pyroclastic, whatever.
Yes.
Science. I don't science.
Science.
So
they don't either.
So Galadriel wakes up And instead of helping the survivors, she finds Theo and she's like, "Oh, you're a main character. Come with me." And then fucks off as like a man's burning like right like 2 feet away from her.
Right.
And everyone else is trying to like save the survivors, and she's like, "Come with me. We're gonna fuck off this way." And I was like, if you ever wanted to hate her character more, it's like that point where like she just like takes Theo and like abandons the village.
Abandons the burning horse. Let's talk about that elephant in the room.
The horse burning.
The village isn't even that big to begin with. So like the fact that like all of her allies are there and like some of them are still alive, you would think that she would like, I don't know, help out or something, but no, she just fucks off. Also, Galadriel kind of forgets about Adar, right? Like the guy that Adar.
Does anybody else get that? Does anybody else even know what he's doing there?
That's from that one movie about the little alien guy, right?
No, it's from Planet of the Cave Bear.
Yeah.
Oh,
See, I've been
Ayla.
Ayla.
Oh.
I've been thinking it was ET the whole time.
I thought it was a little alien guy. Yeah.
The way you said it, that's why I didn't even look at you because I would always just go, Adar.
It's like every time Katie's just done that, I just feel like nobody's getting the joke, so I had to say something.
All right, so basically, the main bad guy, who's the leader of the orcs, they had him chained up in a barn, and Galadriel just kind of forgets about him and like doesn't go to check where he's at, what he's doing, nothing. Also, the queen is now blind. She got some cinders in her eyes, and she tells her minions, lead my horse so the people don't know that I'm blind. And then immediately, once they're out of range of the fire, I guess, like she just puts on a blindfold, and so everyone knows that she's blind.
She doesn't want the dying people to know that she's blind.
Right.
It's not.
We also have.
Where is all this?
this?
When will we be out of this smoke?
Yeah. How long have we been out of the smoke? So we have all the death fake outs. Anyone who knows anything about Tolkien lore knows that Isildur isn't dead, even though they seem to be really hammering that home, like, oh, he's dead.
Yeah.
And Girl Bosswin also, for the second time in a row, has her death faked out. We find out that Galadriel's husband's dead, apparently, or at least she thinks that he is. And so, like, that's that one plot point that they introduce. It's like, oh yeah, she happens to be married, and he's dead.
Yeah, I think he's Adar.
We also have apparently the survivors of the Southlands are going to a Numenorian colony, even though the Numenorians just arrived on their ships and haven't
because they're
settled
colonizers, you see.
Well, but I mean, like, they haven't even had time. Like, they got off the ship and they horse raced all the way to.
They fast traveled, yes.
They fast traveled to the village. So how do they have a colony? Like, they've just been consigned to their island for like.
Well, they had enough
God knows how
XP,
long.
and
Well,
they
they
were
have
able to use the XP to build a
Yeah,
colony.
They have a circus tent with the fence around it.
Shane has a really good theory. It's on Amazon, so they must have ordered from Amazon Prime,
Oh.
and they got the
And a
2-day
drone
delivery.
dropped it.
Yeah, a drone dropped it
Yeah.
in. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it turns out there's a Balrog in Khazad-dûm who's awake instead of slumbering.
By a tiny little leaf.
Yeah, a leaf woke him up. Leaf on the wind.
That's the whole time though that I was falling on. I was like, I'm a leaf on the wind. Anybody?
Yeah.
I'm a leaf on the wind.
Okay, so Hallbrand has a mortal wound that he shrugs off as he rides off with Galadriel to travel thousands of miles to save his life with elvish medicine.
Which doesn't exist. I mean, they don't. That's not how they go about things. But sure, go ahead.
Yeah, and the Femme Shady crowd burns all the Harfoot's trailers just to be dicks.
Which was awesome, by the
It
way.
looks like they did it by accident too. They're like,
It was like,
"Oh, I can do that. All right."
And
Wow.
everyone started cheering. They were like, "Yes, the
Yeah.
Harfoots!"
Yeah.
Wait, oh wait, they're not.
Finally,
They're not.
the Harfoots are gone.
Oh wait, they're not in the huts.
Oh,
Yeah,
you guys really messed up. You should have gotten the Harfoots themselves.
you burned
All
it.
this
then
bad stuff happens in this show, and nobody dies. It's like
then
fire
we have,
has no heat in this world. It's ridiculous.
We have the new fellowship, the pre-fellowship, I guess you'd call it, with female Sam and female Frodo going off to find the stranger to help him out before the Femme Shady squad can find him. And that's pretty much the episode. So before I get to you guys, we have a couple super chats that we'll get to real quick. Fluffy Panda for $5. Thank you, Panda. Hail all, especially my favorite bearded pepperoni pizza eating box office expert. Feeling important like Roman. Acknowledge me, LOL. EFF ROP/Z Andor. So I can't tell if Fluffy Panda is talking about me or Odin on that one.
Odin.
So, I don't know.
I acknowledge you, my tribal chief.
Acknowledge me as your tribal chief.
There's a lot of pepperoni eaters here, I'm sure.
Yes.
So.
The real question to see if you're an expert, would you say that the Mario movie is going to make $1 billion?
No.
Okay, we're on the same page with that. So we're both experts.
I mean, like, it's probably going to make money.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's not going to make $1 million.
It came up on Friday Night Test last night, so.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
The trailer for that looks pretty good.
Looks good.
Except for the voice.
But, yeah. Thank you, Fluffy. I appreciate your support. You're always one of our top donators. Mexican Iron Man for $10. What angers me most about this crappy show is that I am still waiting for the story Tolkien never told about the ancient Middle-earth taco Mexican elves. Or were my people wiped out by the lava? They're just the ones that kind of push around the carts for like the road tacos, you know. That
tacos.
You know, the Harfoots stop off and they're like, "Oh, give me some of that street corn."
Now take their wheels.
Yeah, take their wheels so we can eat all their tacos.
Racist. My God.
I know.
Wow,
There's actually
stomach hurts.
There's actually like a lower Earth, which is like the elf Mexican continent.
They're in Middle Earth, and you need to go to the lower Earth.
Lower Earth.
The Mexican elf.
It's called Tijuana.
You need to go to the south.
Tijuana Earth.
It's in the Southlands. All right.
Yeah, they're all trying to migrate to Middle Earth.
It looks even worse than Mordor.
Yeah, Sauron's like, we're gonna build a wall. It's gonna be the greatest wall.
It's gonna be a great wall. Yes.
All right, thank you, Mexican Iron Man, for that. Joker voice for $5. Even though Horse can't get off screen fast enough, F this crap, I'm out. Elrond and Guy Ladriel don't remember what they said in previous episodes. This is true.
Yeah,
none of them remember what they said. And it is kind of funny because remember the slow motion horse riding with Galadriel, and she's just like, "Fuck that horse." You know?
Yeah, she's like, "I love horses, but I don't love them that much."
Yeah, they're great until they're on fire a little bit, and then don't throw a blanket over that or anything. Yeah.
No.
Hey, Joker, thanks for the $5. Real quick, Joker will be joining us on the panel next week.
Awesome.
Hey,
so it'll be fun.
Keep talking, brother. Keep talking.
Keep talking.
All right, hashtag keep talking. All right, guys. So those were like the major plot points of this episode, with Galadriel basically fucking off, not helping any survivors, the Queen going blind, forgetting about Adar, Isildur isn't dead, Galadriel's husband is dead, apparently, the Númenorian colony, which shouldn't exist, and Halbrand basically shrugging off his mortal wound to ride thousands of miles to get elvish medicine, and the Balrog awakens. So I want to get your guys' take on this episode. So like normally penultimate episodes, the second to last episode of the season, usually either sets up stuff for like a big epic finale, or a lot of stuff happens and then the finale kind of like wraps things up and sets the stage for the next season. This episode didn't feel like a penultimate episode. It just felt like another episode where nothing happened. So either this series has to end with a bang next episode, or this is just a very poorly planned out penultimate episode. So Matt Vader 74, I want to hear your thoughts on episode 7, The Eye.
So I really don't know what happened in this episode. I mean, I think I remember I was watching this thing and I texted you, and it was during the scene when the Queen was on the horse, and I'm like, what's wrong with the Queen? I can't figure out what her deal is, because I'm so out of the show already. I have no idea what's going on, and you come back with, oh, she's blind. I'm like, what? She's blind, and I had to rewind it, and I still didn't get it, because she's just sitting there on top of her horse. But that's how out of this show I am. It's just slow and bad, and I don't care. After everybody lived through the world's largest pyroclastic flow, it just took me completely out of this. I mean, I know it's a show about wizards and elves and dwarves and fantastical things, but that can't happen. That's just completely ignoring the laws of everything. I mean,
Which
they could have
Tolkien
at least,
respected.
yeah, you know, I mean, they didn't even if Galadriel had like maybe cast some kind of wizard spell that protected the village from it or something, you know, I would have bought into that more so than just nothing happens from this wall of hot fire, earth, and sun destroying everything. Nobody should have lived through that, and it pissed me off that nothing happened. And the things that did die was just randomly picked here and there,
Yeah.
just for effect, you know. And you have a horse running through with his saddle on fire, and I'm like, it makes zero sense.
And yet two
None.
people looking like Pompeii. Like
Yeah.
they had two random people looking like Pompeii, and then you had this like mix of all these random other things that's like, what kind of
Yeah.
fire was this?
Yeah,
And
was
also those
insane.
people were literally like feet away from Galadriel.
yeah.
So it's like, why wasn't she like one of them? You know?
And I mean, it there's a whole lot of problems. Like the lava wasn't under pressure, and so when the water was headed towards it,
Yeah.
it should have all become steam prior to actually making this thing explode. It would have. I mean, there are a whole lot of other scientific issues here. But,
Oh yeah.
and when you
100%.
said pyroclastic flow, all of a sudden I had Enya pop in my head, so I'm hearing that over and over again while I'm trying to. This show has gotten no better. I still have problems with the dialogue.
Yeah,
I
it's
can't.
terrible.
I mean, it doesn't sound like Tolkien. They're like speaking modern, using modern colloquialisms, the whole nine yards. And I'm like, what? Why? You know, and elves speak more eloquently than anybody, and we can't even get that right. You know, and you can set aside the aesthetics because the aesthetics don't jam, right? You know, they don't. And I read this dumb article on Hollywood Reporter yesterday, which is the third fluff piece from PMC that you got in the course of 3 days. It was like puff piece, and you get to that one, and you're like, the 5 things that you struggled or that audiences are struggling with. You know, everybody looks like they're dressed in brand new clothes. You know, and I'm like going, that is not a problem. I mean, that is a problem, but that's not the problem we're talking about here. You know, and it's just like it's incredibly frustrating. And their defense of Galadriel is ridiculous in that particular article. And I'm like, look, and what do you mean she's too masculine? She's not masculine. What do you mean? She's the only dude in the show. I mean, it's like where do you want me to begin? Because beyond being boring and like Matt just said, well, Matt and Matt both said, nothing happens. This is and I have problems with the fact that getting from place to place doesn't take any time. I mean, obviously, you know, Odin said fast travel.
Yeah.
That's right. Yeah, hate that. This is the problem Star Wars has too. I mean, it's like all these new writers have no idea that there's a passage of time, and while Kamala Harris can make a word salad out of that, these people just negate that completely, and it bothers me. So that's my reaction to this episode 7, which I thought did nothing. Outside of giving us the Balrog. Remember the Balrog? Here's the Balrog. See the Balrog?
Balrog.
Yeah, you know what's interesting, culture is like there are a lot of channels on YouTube that are devoted to like Tolkien, and when the show first started, most of them, I'd say 90%, were very much in the bag for this show, where they're like, "Oh, it's beautiful," and as the show's gone along, they've slowly turned against it. Like I watch a lot of like YouTube Lord of the Rings channels where they're just like, Galadriel is a terrible character. Like they made us hate her. Like there's no redeeming quality to her. She's just a jerk. You know, they've messed with the lore so much. Like, this isn't Tolkien, this is fan fiction. Yeah. Brian, what did you think of episode 7? And do you think that there's something to this where like the actual shills are slowly turning against the show?
Yeah, I do believe some of your normal shills are starting to turn against it, because like even since the episode before this most recent episode, they were like, okay, so lava doesn't hurt you, and they're making jokes like that. I also believe that there's just things in here that that never lined up with Tolkien, but do sort of line up with other properties sort of based on Tolkien work, like the Slim Shady crew. Clearly they can teleport or blink or dash or whatever Dungeons and Dragons term you want to use. They have some kind of ability that wasn't previously set up before. And you see this throughout the entire series so far.
They are clearly 18th level necromancers.
Yes.
So,
Well, my question is, are they being set up as the Nazgul?
I don't know. And no one knows. And there's like this list of ongoing questions that I have. And it's like, okay, so who's the Slim Shady crew? Who's that? What or who is the deal? What's the deal with Halbrand? Like, he is clearly more than what he says he is. Who and where is Sauron? What's up with Meteor Man? What's up with the Star Map? There's so many questions, yet there's only one episode left, which means they're not planning on answering any of these questions this season, for sure. Unless they just sort of cram all those questions and all those answers into one episode, which, I mean, I guess you could. So they're slow playing this, but they're also pushing so much story into every episode. It's very odd because it's slow and boring, yet they're jumping around so much. It's like they don't know how to make television, because they'll spend so much time on useless things like talking to horses and talking about characters that aren't there and never will be there, or like exposition or whatever, the stuff we've already talked about before. But they never actually push the story along, and they have like 18 characters they're all focusing on at the same time. So it's like they wrote the entire series based on, we're getting 5 seasons, 8 to 10 episodes per season. Then we're going to write this story for that entire 5 seasons. So they're basically writing a 20-hour movie, and that's not how you make TV. There's no hook. There's nothing to keep you watching. There's nothing to keep you even talking about it. It's just boring nonsense.
Yeah, real quick, I just want to point out that the Nazgul were like the kings of men that
Right?
Sauron
Yeah, no, you're
enslaved
right.
through the rings.
You're right, but they've broken a lot of canon already. I'm just,
Well, I don't think there are any female Nazgul, because that would be sexist. Brian, real quick, I know that your brother Shane was kind of like shilling for this show a little bit when it first started. Has his opinion changed at all?
Oh yeah, you guys gotta watch our last review. I had to like digitally hold him back. I don't know if you guys ever experienced this, but you go to a bar or somewhere with your girl and she accidentally dumps water on like the biggest possible dude there, and then she's a little tipsy, so she's in his face, and you're like, oh wow, this is not going to end well for me, right?
like, oh my God, why'd you spill my drink?
right. So like Shane, the last review was like, I might get a little bit. I'm a little bit annoyed this episode. Okay, so just bear with me. I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, Mr. Ed. He goes, okay. He's just losing his mind for like an hour and a half straight. He's very unhappy with this show. But to be fair, I wouldn't call it shilling. Like, we always start a show and we're always like, okay, we're gonna give it a shot and we're gonna try to watch it for a few episodes. And until it's completely unredeemable, we try to stick with it. But this last episode was like the straw that broke Shane's back, because he was just beyond done with it. And there's just so many problems. And the biggest problem of all is that they don't know how to make TV. There's some kind of disconnect. Either the director doesn't know how to make TV, or the writers don't know how to write TV. Something. I can't tell you where. I'm not working on the show. But there's problems. If the director is actually directing it the way it's written, the writers did a poor job. If the writers actually wrote these long exposition scenes, then the director should have fixed it. There's so many weird issues where the show itself it's not, they aren't making a TV show. They're making a really super long movie and then just sort of arbitrarily cutting it up into episodes. And that's just not TV, man. That doesn't work that way.
Well, you know what's funny is this episode was so bad that Angry Joe actually went back and revised all of his previous reviews for previous episodes and dropped them down in his rankings because he was so pissed off at this episode. Before we get to Odin, we have a super chat from Joker Voice. Real quick, for $5, contrast to last episode of House of the Dragon, where the episode goes nowhere physically, but so much happens. One show gets it right, the other sucks. Hashtag keep talking. Yeah, you know, it's kind of funny because like we do have this direct comparison that we can make to another fantasy show on streaming at this point. And I think Amazon's been looking at it too. And when they saw that House of the Dragons has increased their viewership episode to episode, they're kind of like, oh, our show's not doing very good. Odin, what did you think of the penultimate episode of the season, episode 7, The Eye?
From the opening shot to the closing shot, it was complete crap. Like, because like if you just think those two moments, like the opening shot itself, you're reminded, oh, that's right. They're just ignoring how heat works. They're ignoring how fire works. This is stupid. And then you get to the very end and the very last shot, and you have this title change that happens, and you're like, oh my goodness, this is the dumbest way to change the name of something that I've ever seen in my entire life. So you have every single moment in between does not improve upon any of those others, and there's other bad moments strung throughout. But the very fact that your first scene, your first sequence and shot, and your last one are terrible tells you everything that you need to know about just how bad this show actually is. And someone had mentioned in the chat, but I was thinking about it too. Farnsworth mentioned the pre-Nazgul. I would not be surprised if they went that direction with it, where they are the Nazgul, but they are not the actual Nazgul. So they're writers for Sauron, and they'll do the same exact thing, but they're just gonna be like called something different. And it's just going to be some stupid way of being like, hey, remember when you had these warriors riding on the dragons? I remember. I remember. And like, that's all they're going to do. It's like, well, we have to spend 60 million, so we might as well create, dragon looking things. It's so stupid. This entire show was driving me nuts.
So the thing that really got me in this episode is Halbrand. So Galadriel goes through the entire episode thinking that he's dead. She's like, I searched for you by calling out your name as I was walking away from all the survivors. And so like we find him at the end at the Southland camp, and he's got his own tent, and he's got like some type of wound. Somehow he was wounded. And Galadriel takes one look at this wound, and she's like, this requires elvish medicine to heal. And not one scene before this, they showed a human medic suturing up another person with like a wound in the exact same spot that Halbrand has, like on the ribs. And it's not, and so like, if he had been like run through with like a sword, I could see that, but it looks like it was just like a cut that could have easily been sutured. So the very next scene after Galadriel says like, oh, this wound needs elvish medicine to heal because it's so bad. Halbrand literally gets up out of his bed, gets on a horse, and starts galloping away with this like terrible wound on his side. And there is nothing close by here. Like the closest elven, encampment is like literally like 1,000 miles away from like where they are on the map.
Yeah, but next episode they're gonna be in.
Yeah, they'll be there.
They'll be there already.
Yeah,
away.
No, they will. But like I'm watching this, and I'm just like, do the creators of the show not know how travel works? Like the entire Lord of the Rings trilogy was all about getting from like the Shire to Mount Doom.
The entire
3 movies.
The entire 3-movie trilogy was about them traveling
Walking.
to one place.
I wonder if they're going to do some kind of parallel with when Frodo got stabbed by the Nazgul sword, and they had to get into Rivendell. Is Halbrand going to like get slowly worse and worse as they travel, or?
Well, they were close to Rivendell in the movies.
Yeah, right. I know they were close there. So, but now I'm just trying to wonder if they're trying to set up some kind of similar parallel thing to.
Well, all these
be close to
sequences.
I mean,
every single one of these sequences is a throwback. I mean,
they're literally in Mordor.
Yeah,
right
I know.
Now. So, like, they have to go to the closest elven settlement from Mordor. It's just like, dude, that would take months.
Yeah, but Shad presented that on stream last night. That's more like 2,000 miles. That's a long way away. like that from where they were. And
And
I'm going,
I guess you could argue they could take one of their fast ships and travel down the river and then like around the coast, and it would take less time or something.
Oh yeah,
like
those
that,
ships
but-
have warp speed. So
Nah.
they'll be fine.
Or there could be some, how in the Lord of the Rings movies there was that weed that could hold you over for a little bit. Maybe that's what happens. They find some special magical newfangled thing that's able to plot device that's able to continue to keep him alive. Or maybe there's a random settlement of elves that just randomly appears during this age that they've created out of
Gandalf's
nowhere.
Stash, yeah.
Yeah.
Real quick, we have 2 super chats to get to. Fluffy Panda for $5. Thank you, Panda. The biggest unanswered question is how the hell they've spent zillions an episode and have worse graphics than a broken PlayStation 2.
Right?
Shaking my head.
oh,
Also, didn't it seem like Mount Doom got further away from from where Galadriel was?
It was very
in the
far. It
previous
was very,
episode?
very far.
Well, in the previous episode, it was right there. It was like like huge, and then in this episode, it's like super tiny.
Yeah.
It just didn't make any sense.
Continuity
All right,
is
Dennis
not
Wright.
their strong suit.
I know, right? Dennis Wright for $4.99. Are they making Galadriel the antagonist and Sauron Halbrand the protagonist on purpose, you think, or WTF? I don't think they understand what protagonist and antagonist mean. We literally had Galadriel threatening to torture and kill all the orcs in front of Adar just to torture him, and basically committing genocide so that Adar can suffer before she kills him. And then immediately after he like says something, she's like, "I'm going to kill you now." It's like it's so inconsistent.
Her walking through the woods, there's that line of like, oh well, we might as well not fill our heads with these thoughts, and you're just like,
yes.
oh my god.
Yes, with the kid that I don't like. That one, oh my gosh, I'm like that. You tried. There was almost some dialogue that was close to what I would expect from this, but you didn't get it. But it was
empty.
close. Yeah, well done.
It sounded very nice, but it was one of those. I mentioned this last night. It's like, oh, it's one of those like sayings where you listen to it and you like your first take is like, oh, that's profound, but then you actually think about what was said and you realize, oh, nothing was just said. They just went away to say nothing.
Yeah, do you know why a stone doesn't float? Also, like, where did all the orcs come from this episode? Didn't like the Numenorians like just basically decimate the orc army in the previous episode?
Orcs multiply. You kill one and 2 more.
They're
pop
like
do,
out.
rabbits.
do they have
Because there's
Darth
female orcs,
Rocky
remember.
armor?
Hydra.
Oh yeah, there are female orcs.
And so now you can have, they can multiply now.
They
in
just
this
pop out
universe.
of the volcano.
More, don't you think it's more like a gremlin situation? Like they just kind of
Yeah.
spring forth from their backs and stuff. If they show that in the next episode,
Yeah.
I'm all like,
There were a
never
lot
really
of
have-
caves.
I have always kind of wondered where all the orcs come from.
Yeah.
It's very strange
Ground?
that they just show up. So, I don't know,
Magic.
I guess.
Well, isn't in Tolkien lore the orcs were created from men and elves? Like didn't Morgoth corrupt like his followers and turn them into orcs, and that's where they came from?
Man, think about how, because you just realize how much money they're wasting on this show, and then you just mentioned that one concept alone. Think about how interesting that would be to see the origin of the orc and how that happens. How you actually go about corrupting men and elves and creatures to create them. That actually sounds interesting. Whereas instead
fascinating.
it's, hey, let's tell the story about Galadriel.
That sounds
Galadriel.
terrifying. That would be like the ultimate horror movie.
Yes.
It's like some Hellraiser level stuff there.
Man.
That's crazy.
It'd be so cool.
Yeah.
Also, like I hate to do a callback to the very first episode of the show, but in the prologue we have Galadriel saying that she scoured Middle Earth for like 300 years looking for Sauron,
forever.
and she never once went to the Southlands to find these orcs digging like huge trenches and stuff like that.
Well, she was head of the northern armies, so why would she be in the south if she's the head of the northern armies?
But I mean, in 300 years' time, she could have gone down there looking for him. Right?
Well, what we should ask is who was the head of the south armies, and why didn't they do their dang job?
well, it was the guy who got killed, who was like Don Limonor's boss, right?
Mm.
Like he was down there supposed to be like guarding like the watchtower that's held up by rope, and they were like keeping an eye on the men down there for 300 years. and
Just watching.
Just watching.
This is creepy. Yeah, we just
Yeah,
watched you.
apparently they never left their watchtower too far. Like they went down to that one village and then back.
Yeah, well, that's where the ladies were. So
That's how Theo was born, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk about Theo for a little bit because Galadriel was kind of like schooling him in this episode about, like, oh, don't be a guy with hatred in your heart, even though she's literally hasn't been able to give up like her vengeful quest for her brother. Yeah. And Theo in this whole thing, he just goes with her instead of searching for his mom, who's like the most important person in the world to him. None of this made sense. None of it. Matt Vader 74. What did you think of Galadriel and Theo's little expedition?
Oh, well, it was just the highlight of the episode. It was just riveting conversation, and the entire trip to the circus tent of the Numenorians. Yeah, man. I told you I was out of it. I didn't care. I was just so. I don't know. Nothing makes sense in this show to me at all. I watched this show and I'm trying to recast it in my brain. Like, I wonder if the Slim Shady crew, if they could have like put like Darby Allin in there instead of Slim Shady, that kind of stuff. None of it makes sense. Galadriel going on talking like she's talking out of the King James version of the Bible written by Tolkien was really strange. Her dialogue was awful, and it was even worse. Coming out of her like weirdly CGI looking face, even though we know it's not CGI. It's she's the weirdest character to me. So
you get a video game character, they ain't quite. It's like a little bit off.
Yeah. No, just doesn't resonate, man. Doesn't resonate with me at all. These characters. So,
Odin, was there anything in this episode that particularly stood out to you as being egregious?
Yes,
that just triggered you.
Yes, the conversation. The conversation between Theo and Galadriel. And I posted, there's apparently a TV show transcripts website. And I was like, can I find the dialogue from this episode? Well, you seek and you shall find. So the conversation went, and now, how many have you killed? Many. His response, good. I would not use such words. Why not? It darkens the heart. To call dark deeds good. It gives place for evil to thrive inside us. Everywhere is fought both without and within. Of that every soldier must be mindful, even you. Am I a soldier then? That's the dialogue. That's what he gets out of it. Wait, I'm a soldier? Wait, you were talking about dark and good and stuff like that, which is kind of Tolkien, but wait a minute, I'm a soldier now? But also that line, it darkens the heart to call dark deeds good. And it's like...
I laughed out loud. During that scene to that very line. I couldn't believe it. I'm like, oh my gosh. They are not consistent the characters have no consistency episode to episode, and even within the same episode. And I think somebody brought it up earlier. They forget conversations that have already taken place that would have given, a lot of background information into what, was happening around them. And they forget that dude, it's so easy to play Cyberpunk 2077 while I'm watching this show, because that's way more interesting than the show. This
is how I watch the show. My phone.
It's just bad.
Let me show you guys. This is how I watch the show.
Yeah.
So literally, I make rosaries as I'm watching the show, because I'm like, okay, I just, again, especially with it's very appropriate for it being it's inspired by, not inspired really, but inspired by Tolkien. It's like, well, I got to do something Catholic because there's nothing Catholic in this show. So I'm like, hey, at least I'll do something useful with my time, because watching the show isn't. So
yeah, that conversation between Galadriel and the kid.
Yeah.
When the orcs show up and then they're like hiding, like, shh, hide.
Yeah.
I'm like, there's like 5 or 6 orcs there. Like,
yeah.
Dude, Galadriel's a superhero. This should be no problem.
Yeah, she can take on ice trolls all by herself.
Dude,
no issue.
She all that happened to her. You're right. She's a superhero, because all that happened to her when the pyroclastic flow, or whatever you want to call it, she got blasted, dude. She should have been toast, right? Nah, she's taking a nap in the ashes when she wakes up. I was like, good gravy, Granny. Goodness.
Real quick, we got a super chat from Jillian N for $4.99. Thank you, Jillian. They probably think protagonists, antagonists, and especially deuteragonists are various types of bigots. Yeah, that tracks. Brian,
I don't
at
like
the
big
end,
words. Big words.
Brian,
hurt.
at the end of this episode, we have Adar, who basically tells the orcs that this is no longer the land of man. And we get the Southlands scroll come up, and then it changes to Mordor, which in the Elvish tongue means the Black Land. And do you think that this reveal was handled well, or should Adar have been there and be like, I now call this land Mordor, or like whatever? Like how did you think they handled that reveal?
I'm sorry, they handled that the way a YouTuber would handle it. That's horrible. I'm not making fun of our profession here, boys, but if you asked me to reveal something in a video, I would have done it the same way because I don't have the ability to shoot actual footage. Dude, this was the worst way to reveal. I mean, oh my God, it should have been when they were talking to Adar should have turned around, like you said, and should have been like, this is now Mordor.
Or
and then you could
like,
have had the words on screen to add effect to it, whatever. But like, I'm looking at this, I'm like, damn, that's exactly what I would have done in After Effects. I would have had the word, I would have had it flame out and turn into Mordor. This is a $1 billion TV show, and they're doing it the exact way I would have done it.
But think about it. They could have also done it with, like, they could have had the dark tongue, right? The dark language. They could have done it where he's mentioned something about, like, something with the event of the volcano and the actual eruption, and then mentioned something about, well, you know, such and such, and then use the language, and it sounds similar to Mordor, and then that's where he gets the name. That at least would have made sense.
All the orcs that were in the background could have just started chanting the name.
Yeah, but that was Adar.
What do you think the over under is that the next episode they refer to that area as Mordor? You know, all the elves and humans and stuff.
Oh,
like that.
100%.
Even though
everybody knows now.
Yeah.
Well, hey,
okay.
it was on the screen, guys. Okay, good. You had the Southlands, and then
Oh my God.
I bet I'll bet you $5 that's what they do. Is every other character starts referring to it as Mordor, even though, like,
of course, their map updated, right? Just went
right.
That's what they'll do. They'll show a map, and then
press
they'll be
escape.
a
You go to
similar
like
effect.
Control M, you pull your map up, and now it shows Mordor.
Oh
instead
wait,
of the Southlands.
who took over this country? Why did the name changed?
Yeah, and the ones that don't get that update is because they didn't download the DLC and they can't fast travel.
No,
That's
or they
right,
could say the trees. They're speaking. There's been whispers in the wind of a new land called Mordor.
Google Maps says it's Mordor now, guys. I gotta go.
There will be a scene with Elendil where he'll be looking at the map on the ship, and he'll be like, "We're not going to call this Mordor because it's the Black Lands, and that's what it means in Elvish." And then they'll just move
Black
on
speech,
from there. Yeah.
I mean, let's be real here though for a second. The Southlands was a really lame name. It's a very generic placeholder name, so they had to get there.
What's the land in the South? It's very
It's the
practical.
land of the South. That's pretty much that's like Fantasy 101. They make it easy.
Yeah.
That's like saying
it's
South
funny,
America's a
Southlands,
stupid name.
Southlands,
Yeah.
Westlands, Rightlands, Leftlands.
Because if you look at the
Centraland.
map of Middle Earth, like you have like the Rohan and Gondor and like all these like very like Tolkien-esque names, and then it's like the Southlands.
South.
It's like you can tell that J.D. Payne came up with that on his own.
yeah.
Where he's like, "Oh, it's in the South. We'll just call it the Southlands." It's painful. Culture. What did you think of the whole Harfoot storyline, where basically they exile the stranger because he made a burnt tree branch fall
the
on
tree
someone?
thing? Yeah,
Man, I'm
yeah.
glad you got that question.
Yeah, I to be honest with you, totally not Gandalf. Like, I'm fine with him being exiled. To be honest with you, my prediction is that he's going to bump into Guy Ladriel and Halbrand on their way to wherever, and he's going to magically fix it along the path to where they're headed. I don't know. But no, honestly, the best part about the Harfoot storyline was when everything caught on fire. We suggested that earlier. I think that was, I was deeply gratified at that moment. It was probably the only satisfying element of this entire episode was lighting their stuff on fire. But I don't know. The tree thing, like you said, I mean, he was talking to the tree. Ultimately, I mean, we're supposed to expect that he's trying to heal the tree, right? That's kind of what we're being led to believe. And then, of course, it breaks apart. So it's maybe it's beyond his magical power at this point. I don't know. Look, it was silly in a lot of different ways, but look, getting me to try to digest what these folks are doing, or to I try to guess what's happening here, I think that all of us are writing this story better than they are. I think.
Well, I think it's funny that the stranger, number one, he helped the Brandyfoots keep from getting left behind by the psychotic Hardfoots by pulling their wagon. Then he saves the whole caravan from wolves. And then like they ask him to try to help heal this this grove that was destroyed by a booger from Mount Doom. And as he's doing that, the tree falls on like one of them, and they're like, "Oh, he's too dangerous. We got to ask this guy to leave." And it's like seriously, like this is how your thought process goes.
Well, Matt, you're trying to make sense of this. They can't make sense of it. I mean, nothing here is a linear progression in storytelling at all. And anyway, I
also think it's funny. They give him one apple, and they're like, "Yeah, go that way. There's like humans over there."
This will make you survive.
Yeah, they give him one apple as they're like putting bushels in all their wagons and stuff like that. Like they're doing this like huge harvest.
Yeah,
I don't know where they got all that. Way too many supplies. Like the time, nothing actually adds up in this show. It's like,
but they're gone now, so don't worry about it, Brian. Problem solved.
I don't know, man. Once again, I just found myself rooting for the bad guys in a television show, and that's not how it's supposed to work.
And the Hardfoots are the worst because before, when it was like Harfoots, you're like, okay, it's just a silly, Tolkien name or whatever. But then they explain it, and it makes it so much worse when they're like, oh, it's because our heart is stronger than our foot. Like, no, don't do that. Don't make it a heart foot. That makes you look even stupider. Yep. You should have just been a Harfoots the whole time. You made it worse somehow.
Also, where is this grove that like a fireball from Mount Doom can reach it? Like, are they like right over like the mountain range from Mordor, or are they like so far away that this thing just traveled thousands of miles and happened to land there?
It was a special pumice rock of death. So
right. The volcano has fast travel.
It was the lava rock of a plot contrivance. So yeah,
conveniently landing in very specific spots and not killing a single Harfoot.
Yeah. All right, guys. So let's go around and get your final thoughts of the penultimate episode of Rings of Power entitled "The Eye." Odin, let's start with you. What are your final thoughts on this episode, and what are your predictions for the finale?
Oh, I'm just sad we didn't do a deeper dive into this episode because I feel like there's just so much more. I was looking for the other lines that made me cringe in the show, where it said, you may find it difficult to put it down again, right? Do not take the burden on this day on your shoulders, Theo. But how am I to let go? There are powers beyond darkness at work in this world. Perhaps on days such as this, we've little choice but to trust in their designs and surrender our own. It's like, oh, really? Yeah, that's consistent with everything you've said before. But yeah, this penultimate episode doesn't feel like one, as you were mentioning before. I think there was murmurings last night about us getting at least the reveal of the totally not surprising reveal of who Sauron actually has been this whole time. And something tells me the way it was described, it sounds like that's how they're going to end the season. It's just like there's going to just be a line said where it's immediately like, oh, this guy is clearly Sauron, and that's how they're going to end it. And to me, I'm going to think, okay, so what do we have to look forward to next season then? Is it going to be more Harfoots? Is that what you're going to try to sell us on? We're going to find out. I'll tell you what.
I mean, they're not going to show Sauron, or they might show him, but they're not going to show who he was this entire season. They're not going to answer any of these questions. I do believe that they have written this with full knowledge that they have 5 seasons of writing. So they have plenty of time to answer any questions that they've brought up this entire series. Or it's going to be horrible, and it's going to be like what you said, and he's just going to be like, oh, by the way, I'm Sauron. See you next season. And you're like,
So
"Oh,
yeah,
really?"
the way it was
No, I'm
described,
Sauron.
yeah, the way it was described, it wasn't like that clearly, but there's a line that said, I don't know if anyone cares about potential like spoilers for the
No.
show or not, but basically it's like I've gone by many names is said, and so it's indicated the person who says that is clearly Sauron. But also, but the reason why I'm upset here is because Matt Vader's here. Why aren't we talking about the dwarf scene?
Right, real quick before we get to that, I actually have a theory about Sauron.
Completely
I
forgot
think the
about it.
horse is Sauron.
Do you guys want to talk about the door scene real quick before we get to the rest
I
of
think
the?
we I
final
think we
thoughts?
should. We got to talk about the dwarf and elf friendship going on there.
Matt Vader, did you have any thoughts on the dwarf scene?
Bros
Honestly-
too. Elves and
Honestly,
dwarves.
not really. Not really.
Do you like how he is kind of being pushed by his wife to basically turn against his father?
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I was deep into my phone at this point of the show.
It was the only interesting character change in the entire
Yeah.
thing. It's like, oh, she's evil
Yeah.
now. That's kind
Yes.
of interesting, I guess.
Did you
Well,
notice?
I mean, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask. Did you notice how they switched up her voice? Like not just like the way that she was talking, but there was kind of like this mechanical addition to it. Like, in
Oh
that
no, I
scene.
didn't.
Yeah, her voice changed a little bit, and I'm not sure if that was if it was
What if
added
she's
volume.
Sauron?
No, but it was interesting because I was like, okay, her voice now has this like mechanical
Oh,
undertone or
I know.
overtone.
I know what they're doing. Okay, so they're going Stranger Things with it. All right, so
Okay.
she has now been possessed by the Balrog. It's Stranger Things, right? Going that, and so that's what's gonna. Oh, Balrog is gonna inspire her to have her husband turn against. Oh, that's where it's gonna be. Yep, boom, there you go. And that is gonna be what sets us up for season 2, because everyone's gonna say, "What? I didn't see that one coming. I want to find out more about this really stupid thing that you did to try to make it interesting."
It was
Well,
just weird
there
because
were-
she has a very clear voice throughout all of it until
Mhm.
that scene, and it was odd. I'm like, wait a minute, that's different. Like I said, because I'm not really like I'm not like completely engaged with the show when it's on because it's terrible. I noticed when things change, audio, like the audio stuff I cue off of. It's where the OCD like kicks in. Like that
Yeah.
doesn't sound
Well,
exactly.
there are two aspects to the dwarf story in this episode that I found interesting. The first is that King Durin seems to know that there's a Balrog in there, and so he's preventing the mining from awaking the Balrog. But he could just tell his son this, but he doesn't. Second of all, the wife makes a good point where she's like, "Hey, just wait for your dad to die, and then when you take the crown, you can give the elves as much mithril as you want." And instead, he loses his cool and gets basically disinherited from like the royal bloodline. Real quick, we have a super chat from Fluffy Panda for $5. Spoilers: Elrond and Durin's relationship is based off Vader's and Kadish's relationship. Sorry to expose you to the whole world, but Odin
No.
blackmailed me.
Wow!
Oh no.
Wow!
And you're like,
Well, who's Durin and who's Elrond in that relationship?
Oh boy!
I wonder. Brian, what are your final thoughts on episode 7, The Eye? And what are your predictions for the season finale?
yeah, my final thoughts on the episode is it was a waste of my time. And as far as my predictions for next week, I predict that we're going to be as equally disappointed, if not more. In fact, more than this week, because I feel like there's one more episode left, and there are a ton of questions left unanswered. And it's a joke. We can joke about how bad certain things are, but then there's also the point that, like, just reviewing it as a TV critic, well, you've posed all these questions. When do you plan to answer them? And if the answer is next season, then that's just another indicator that this was not just poorly made Tolkien, just poorly made TV. Because you can't make an entire season, ask 25 questions and answer 3 of them. You just can't do that. Not and call it good TV. That's my impression.
Okay. Culture. there was very little rings or power in the Rings of Power this season. What are your final thoughts on the penultimate episode and your predictions for the finale?
We're gonna get to see the Balrog again some more because member berries. I have a feeling that the dwarfs are going to fare badly in the very near future because of the efforts by Durin and his wife Disa. I suspect that we are going to get the Sauron reveal finally that nobody is going to be surprised by. I believe that we will totally know that Gandalf is the wizard that's been walking around amongst the Harfoots, and Galadriel will not get any better at all.
Sounds like a fair prediction. Matt Bader 74. What are your final thoughts of this episode and your predictions for the finale?
My predictions for the finale are that we're going to get a really cool corner setting stone ceremony with all the orcs and goblins as they start construction of the tower next to Mount Doom.
That's actually
so
that's the end. That's the cornerstone being established.
Yeah, they're going straight up Freemason, right?
Tower.
It's gonna be amazing.
Because they gotta have somewhere for Sauron to put his eyeball at the end of all this. So they need to build that tower. And that's a really big tower. So
if only there was a mousetrap way of them doing it, like they were able to set out the volcano,
Right. We'll start digging some new ditches, and it'll be a lot of fun. Yeah.
Well, as long as they have enough rope, they can build that tower.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So,
but Jeff's friends. Oh, poor Jeff's friends.
Poor Jeff's friends.
Poor Jeff. They're all they should be fine because
freaking Jeff, dude.
I don't know how that volcano burned off everything in the land because it was a really cool volcano. You can't even burn flesh off a bone.
I know. Unreal. It can strip a tree of everything basically, but Galadriel, nope. Other humans, nope.
Nope. Horses, mm-mm.
Mm-mm. Just their saddle. Just the saddle can set on fire.
I thought it was just the rear flanks. I didn't even think there was a saddle on that particular horse. But that still bothers me. That scene was like going,
Or maybe they'll have go ahead.
Well, was anyone faked out by Isildur dying? Because he's such a huge character. I'm like, what are you thinking? Like any Tolkien fan knows that Isildur doesn't die.
Yeah, I'm a normie, and I knew he was alive. I was like, well, he doesn't die there. And Shane's like, no, of course he doesn't die. I'm like, yeah, I mean, everyone knows that.
Also, his one friend when they lift the house and his friends there, he's like.
That's why when y'all said no one died, I was like, one person died. I don't even remember his name, but he died.
Well, he was also the guy who told the girl that he just married. He's like, oh, I'm going to be coming back. Don't worry about it. And when that happened in that episode, I was like, he's dead.
The next episode, there's going to be a moment where they're going to go up to her and they're going to, present his sword or something. And
next episode, they're going to be back in Numenor. It's like, we fast traveled again.
Numenor.
I want Don Liminor to go up to a tree and touch it and go, it's been a long time since I've seen you, my friend.
There was a severe absence of Don Liminor this episode.
Yes, well, he just had a small appearance.
He got to have a moment with his son. He did get to hug his son.
That's right.
So
the hug of a father. That was clearly the hug of a father.
Am I wrong? That was clearly the hug of a father.
Yep.
Also, did you notice that girl Boswin's arrow wound is completely healed?
That's right.
Bro.
And also nothing from the fire. They're just fine.
Yeah, they're just fine.
Nothing makes sense.
Everything's fine.
Nothing makes sense.
Now maybe
the queen is now Daredevil. She just relies on her.
That's right. Well, and then for how they're fine, well, maybe Don Liminor, maybe he had a cloak similar to Batman's in Batman Forever, where you can press a little button and it makes you fireproof. Maybe that's how they. I don't know. Just a thought.
I think Dennis in the chat kind of nailed it right here.
Is Joel Schumacher in this show? I don't know.
Fans, don't watch this show. This is
Joel Schumacher's dead, Odin. You know this very well. But still, his spirit,
his soul lives on.
Yeah, his soul lives on. Yeah, the showrunners are carrying on the Joel Schumacher legacy with man boob armor and all this other
Seriously,
stuff.
think about it. Think about the connections. I'm just saying.
Oh,
Moves.
you know what? I think Odin's onto something here.
Look at, I mean, maybe in an interview soon, they'll be like, well, a lot of us, we were really inspired by Joel Schumacher growing
Very
up.
inspired by
So I'm wondering if the costumers are the same ones that made the penis wrinkle armor from The Witcher first season that worked on this show.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that armor.
The foreskin armor.
Well,
I mean,
well,
it was sort of hot. Let's be real.
Odin, just to your point about Joel Schumacher, we have like the poor man's Joel Schumacher, J.A. Bayona, who is integrally involved in this series. He directed the pilot. He's the guy who's been shepherding the showrunners, and he's the guy who directed Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, the second Jurassic World movie.
Which was terrible.
Yes.
Which was terrible. So like,
And Volcano.
Is it any wonder? Yeah, and
Yeah.
Volcano.
Also,
Is it any wonder?
terrible.
Yes. Is it any wonder that this show is in as bad a shape as it is with these people at the helm? All right, guys. So that was our discussion about Rings of Power. Next week, we're going to be talking about the finale. But now that we've covered this, because Vader insisted that he didn't want to spend 2 hours going through this episode,
Good.
we're going to pivot to the new Star Wars offering, Andor, from the creators of Rogue One.
And we equally fun, Vader, by the way.
I'm just gonna go. I'll see you guys later.
We have
This was all a setup.
It was a setup.
we have the first 5 episodes of this show that are currently out, and we're going to talk about them. So, Matt Vader 74, why did you decide that we're going to talk about Andor this
Because I needed something else to talk crap about other than talking about Rings of Power for 2 hours every week. There's so much bad television out there right now that we needed to spread our wings out a little bit and talk about more of them, just for fun.
All right. So
basically, and I felt kind of weird that we hadn't talked about Andor yet. It is Star Wars. We need to touch on it a little bit every once in a while.
Star Wars.
So just
There are going to be 12 episodes of Andor in total, and they all range from about a half hour to 40 minutes each. But they released the first 3 episodes right off the bat. And so we're about 3 weeks in, we've gotten 5 episodes. So why don't we give our general impressions of the first 5 episodes of Andor, and then we'll go into a little bit more specifics. Matt Vader 74, what were your impressions of Andor?
I think I'm going to probably be echoing pretty much everybody's thoughts on this show, where I feel like it's very pretty, it's very cinematic, it's shot nicely, and it's got that same kind of feel like kind of Rogue One kind of has in a lot of ways. I like that. I do like that part of the show. I like the big fast cinematic scenes. They're all very pretty, and it's really kind of cool to see realistic looking planets, but with starships and TIE fighters flying through the atmosphere and stuff. It's cool. I like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But like everybody else, I know probably everybody on this panel except maybe Matt thinks this. It is boring. It is boring as hell. It is a slow roll, and I don't like it because of that. I mean, episode 5, we spent, we watched the guy eat breakfast for 10 minutes. It's just stuff like that just really throws me. I find it very strange. We're just spending a lot of time getting a lot of character introduction and setup for these guys, and I think this thing needs to get moving very quickly here. So that's my initial thoughts. Looks pretty, but it's slow and boring, and I need more. So,
all right, Culture Casino, what are your initial impressions of the first 5 episodes of Andor?
Uninspired plotting filler. That's probably it. I could not get ginned up into this. Anything that Disney has been associated with as far as Star Wars goes, absent the first season of Mandalorian, has been without inspiration. And they take an idea that should be part of many other ideas, and they try to stretch one idea for a whole season. and everything else in between. I mean, again, it comes down to writing. Again, the casting in the show, we talked about it a little bit before Odin got here backstage, but Diego Luna's wasted on this particular program because he is far better in many other things that he's in. But this show in particular, through the first 5 episodes, that's what I'm focused on now. Beyond boring, Matt, I think it's it's a catastrophic waste of time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Brian, what are your initial impressions of Andor's first 5 episodes?
I mean, here's the deal. You're right. It looks great. I mean, dude, it looks really great. The whole time, every week we reviewed it, I was saying the same thing. Like, I love how Star Wars this is. Like, it is so Star Wars in its setting. Like, everything looks like Star Wars. Everything looks like it's practical effects. It reminds me of the original Star Wars trilogy more than anything since the original Star Wars trilogy. Like, the setting, cinematics, the costumes, everything. It reminds me of Star Wars. And I love that aspect of it. And I can almost watch it just for that reason. I'm not gonna lie. I was a big Star Wars fan back in the day. And this I don't know if you guys have been to Disneyland yet, but the Disneyland Galaxy's Edge thing is actually pretty rad. You walk through basically Star Wars, and as a kid who grew up watching the original Star Wars, that was like my dream, is to walk around in Tatooine or whatever, right? So watching this feels like that. It really does. But the characters, they have no life to them. They have no inspiration, like you said. Like, it's not inspired. Like, everything feels like just a drain. Like, everyone's just trying to get through the day, and like, it feels like it's almost like you're at work and you're working with all your coworkers and everyone's just trying to get through the day. There's nothing worth anything other than just get to Friday, man. Okay, come on. And that's how this show feels. Like, it just feels like, let's just get through it. And that's why we chose to stop reviewing it, because this last episode in particular, nothing happened for 47 minutes. Literally nothing happened. The story was not moved forward at all.
Nope.
It was 47 minutes of exposition that didn't even move the story forward, pretty much. It was so worthless. You can completely skip through out of the last 4 episodes. You can skip 2 of them and it would have no bearing on the story that you're watching. There's just so much filler. So yeah, it looks beautiful, and I'm not gonna say it's a bad show because I don't think it's bad. I also don't think it's good. I think it's just sort of there. And I believe that if you took the entire 8 episodes or whatever it is, you can probably cut that down into a pretty decent 1.5 hour long movie. I believe that. But someone would have to go through 8.5 hours of footage and just cut it down. You can cut that down into an hour long movie and call it, Star Wars Rogue Zero or whatever. I don't know. But you could do that. And that's why we're just not going to review it anymore, because like week after week, like at least with Rings of Power, there's something to complain about. There's something to talk about, right? Quantum Leap, we like Quantum Leap. There's something to talk about that's positive. But this show, there's nothing really to talk about at all from week to week. And I'm so tired of saying, well, it looks really nice. And that's all I got. It looks good. It looks like Star Wars, but like, I don't really care about the characters very much.
So it's pacing issues. Is that what the issue is? I think
pacings are bad. It's, it suffers from the same problem that Rings of Power suffers from, in the sense where it's almost like they know how many episodes they already have in the bank. They don't have to entice you to watch. Like, it was almost, is it designed for you to binge watch 3 seasons in one sitting? Is that what it's designed for? Because there are entire episodes that have no story bearing whatsoever. You can completely skip them, and you would know exactly what's going on in the following episode. So that's just it's just poorly made TV. But the show itself is not bad. It's just not good. It's just
Yeah.
sort of meh.
All right, Odin, what's your take on Andor in the first 5 episodes?
So to echo what a lot of other people said, I do think it definitely has production value. I can actually see the money that has been spent on this, whereas with the other shows that they have done, I just haven't seen it one bit. It just
Right.
it like they claim to have spent a lot of money on every single episode, but it looks so artificial because you can tell they're using those projected backgrounds and everything. It's just not good. And so like I'll give it. That's like the only good thing I can really give this show, because the first mistake that they made was thinking, we're gonna make a show about one of the most boring characters from a movie that we made that happens to be most people's favorite of the new era, but even that's not saying all that much.
Right.
So we're going to take the most boring character from that. We're then going to mention in our promotions that, it's not just Cassian Andor, K2SO's coming back too, but then we're not going to actually have him until season 2, I think they said is when he's going to come into play. Because, hey, I love me some Alan Tudyk. I will take some Alan Tudyk voice acting K2SO. So it's just, again, if they were going to take any character from that universe and make a show on it, K2SO would have been a much more interesting. They could have made that into a fun comedy, lighthearted, and made it fun. So that way you didn't feel like you were wasting your time, because it was just like, oh no, this is just meant to be a fun little show. Whereas with this one, it's supposed to be making you care about who Cassian Andor is, where he comes from, and all these other elements, but that's just not there. Like, if this show was about a brand new character, I actually think I would like it. But because it's about Cassian Andor, who we already know what happens to him, I just don't care. I don't care about his back arc or his character arc. I don't care about his background or anything. And even that what they are showing, because his character was already so boring to begin with, there's not much for them to tell. So it's like, if they had a brand new character, they could have probably fixed those problems that I have, like just not having anything interesting to say about it, and about this character. And have that same, like, hey, beginning of the rebellion stuff, they could have still had that going on in the background, because that's somewhat interesting. But ultimately, it just falls flat because of, it's not Diego Luna's fault. It's because his character is just very poorly written. And
I think Joker just talked about it in the chat, but I was thinking about it prior to that. Of all the characters in Rogue One, I think Andor, or Cassian Andor, is probably the one that he was the one I liked the least. If they had done a Chirrut and Baze show, exploring some of that and their history, and with his whatever lack of force training he might have had, and some of their mercenary missions and stuff, they could have tied that into the beginning of the rebellion and all this kind of stuff. That would have been fascinating.
Having a martial arts show would have been fascinating.
Great. We all love those actors. It would have been super cool. There's 100 different things that could have spun off. Well, probably not 100. A few different things that could have spun off of Rogue One that would have been more interesting than what we've gotten. But
No, the story should have been about Lucian. It should have been his story.
Yeah,
I don't understand why wouldn't you bank your new thing on the most interesting character you have, Lucian?
You're talking about Stellan Skarsgård character,
right? Yeah, Skarsgård.
Luthen. Yeah, okay. All right.
I'm sorry. Am I saying the word wrong? Luthien?
Luthen. Yeah.
My bad. All
cool,
these names.
When they said his name,
House the Dragon and Andor have all these I'm bad with normal English names. So
that's a bad name too. When they said it, I was like, that's his name, Luthen. That's what they're going with.
So whatever his name is, he's interesting.
I want to know what Kadish has to think, because I have a feeling he's going to have a little bit of a different take here.
I'm sure he will.
Yeah, so I'm going to be up here alone on my hill with my flag. I actually really like this show. I know that you guys are complaining that it's very slow, but if you understand Tony Gilroy, who's the kind of like executive producer, he's written all the episodes, stuff like that. He has a very unique way of writing. So like he wrote all the Bourne Identity movies. He wrote The Devil's Advocate, Armageddon, Michael Clayton, State of Play, Duplicity. So like he's very much kind of steeped in like the character centric intrigue, drama stuff. And he was the one who basically came in and redid Rogue One, basically saved it from being like a complete disaster. And so like the way I look at Andor is that basically Tony Gilroy wrote 4 90-minute movies about this, and Kathleen Kennedy came in and carved them up into half-hour episodes. And if you watch these week to week, you guys are absolutely right. They are incredibly boring. But if you watch them as they're meant to be, which is all 3 episodes in sequence, so episodes 1 through 3, episodes 4 through 6, all the way up to episode 12. If you were able to binge this stuff and watch all these things as they were written, I believe that it wouldn't be as bad as you guys are making it out to be. I happen to like very deliberately paced dramas. Like I love The Wire. The first season of The Wire doesn't get good until like episode 9. And so like when I was watching that show, I was holding fast. I was like, man, this show's so boring. But then like as soon as episode 9 hit, everything that led up to that just started clicking. And it became one of the most engrossing, best written shows on TV. I feel like, we kind of talked about this with Culture before we went live, which is that Diego Luna was in a show called Narcos on Narcos Mexico on Netflix. And it's part of the Narcos series, which basically looks at different drug dealers throughout the drug wars of like the 80s and 90s and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And this show feels very much to me like Star Wars' version of Narcos, where it's a very slow and deliberately paced show, but it takes its time to set stuff up that's going to pay off in a big way later on. And I feel like these first 5 episodes were all set up to the point where they're going to pull this heist in the next episode. And then that heist is going to lead into the main thrust of the action for like the remainder of the season. Because like you said, like they're just setting up so much stuff that feels like it's boring and filler, but I feel like it's necessary in order for the story to really kind of find its pacing in the later half of the season. So yeah, I disagree with you guys. I'm fascinated by this show. I love the look at like the daily imperial life. I love the look at like the guy when he goes back home to his mom's place, just like the architecture and like the cereal with the blue milk and stuff like that.
I love that stuff too.
Yeah, it's these little slices of Star Wars everyday life that I'm really digging, because like we haven't like we get to see the grand space opera in the movies, but we don't see like the mundane like every man on the street type life within the Empire and like the bureaucracy and like all this other stuff. I find that stuff very fascinating, and to me it enriches the world. And that's one of the things that the EU books did really well, is you got to see that type of stuff in the books, but we never got to see it in the movies.
What has that
So
actress been
I'm really
in?
liking this.
The one that plays the mom. Because as soon as I heard her voice and saw her face, I was like, I've seen her in something. I can't put my finger on it.
I don't know.
Okay.
I honestly don't even care.
So you're like, give me more like Trade Federation talk. Let's get some more.
Not
like,
necessarily Trade Federation talk, but I mean, like, I love.
So you're a
seeing,
prequel defender. Is that what I'm hearing?
Well, it's like in House of the Dragon. Some of the best scenes in House of the Dragon are the small council scenes.
Sure.
And the stuff that like the Imperial intelligence agency has, where like you have like all these Imperial officers sitting around a table, and the guy at the head of the table is basically berating them, and there's all this political maneuvering between them to try to jockey for position. And it's little stuff like that I like. Like there was a scene in this last episode where the black Imperial officer guy is at that planet that we had in the first 3 episodes. And there's this one dude where he's like, can I be called a prefect? Because like, I know it doesn't come with a bump in pay, but like, I'd really like the title. And he's just like, I don't care what the fuck you call yourself. So it's like, you use this building as your headquarters and get this place in shape. And it's just like little things like that like I think are really interesting to me, because they kind of like paint a broader picture of Star Wars. If you look at Kenobi, for instance, when we were at the Inquisitor's fortress, you had officers just like that one guy, right? But you didn't get to know anything about them. Whereas in this episode, like you actually get the time to know, okay, here are the rebels, and this is their motivation for being rebels, and here are the Empire, and this is their motivation for being in the Empire. I just find it fascinating. I think that it's a very layered show, and I feel like the week-to-week release schedule is doing it a disservice. If they released all the episodes at once for people to binge, I feel like people would be giving the show like a lot more credit than they are right now.
Not if it was released in the way that it was, where like an episode ended, because like basically because every ending isn't interesting enough to make me say, oh, I can't wait for next week's, because that's the other problem, is that it's missing, as you said, it seems like it was written to be this, longer, like, long form movie
basically.
or something.
Yeah.
But like if it was still in this episodic format, I think that you might have actually less people, because of the fact that a lot more people would say, oh, I can binge it, but I'm 2 episodes in and nothing's happened yet, and I have nothing to look forward to. And so I guess my
that was
question
like
also...
that was the Narcos model, though.
But
where like,
I guess
when you
how
start
many
watching
episodes
Narcos,
did it take for Narcos to get going? How many episodes did it take for people to actually?
I
feel
watched
like it
Narcos.
was-
I believe it took like 3 or 4 episodes.
and
Yeah,
we're past
Nar-
that with this.
well, but I mean, like those were hour-long episodes for Narcos, whereas
They
these
were
are
longer.
half-hour episodes.
Yeah.
Plus, there was a lot of attractive women in it that kept me going. I'm not gonna lie.
Well, but honestly, from the first episode of the first Narcos series, before we got to Narcos Mexico featuring Diego Luga, you had compelling things happening on the screen. You were being led down the path of how to pursue this drug dealer.
And I'd argue that there are compelling things going on in this show, but because it's week to week and you like tend to forget about certain things, it's not as impactful. Whereas like if Disney Plus basically came out and says, here's all 12 episodes of Andor, binge it. Because I just finished binging Cobra Kai season 5 last night, and the binge model of being able to sit down and watch all the episodes back to back, especially if they're half-hour episodes, is so much more fulfilling and so much more interesting to me than this week-to-week model.
And
Because
yet,
I feel like if it was like an hour-long episodes, the week-to-week would work a little bit better. But I feel like because they're shorter episodes and there's so many of them, if they had just allowed us to binge them, people would be giving the show a little bit more praise.
and
I
yet,
don't think
though,
so. I think that's bad
yeah.
for studios. I think binging is really bad for studios. There's no one,
Yeah.
no one talks about it after that first week.
But also, too, I would argue that it's different, though, with Cobra Kai, because Cobra Kai, every episode ends and you're like, I have to watch more, which would
Yeah.
mean if they did a week to week, you would actually say, oh, I can't wait for the next week's episode, where you wouldn't have that with this one if that
That's
were,
true.
and you
But
don't have
I'll-
that with this one. So
I'll go
and-
back to the Wire, though, right? I don't know if any of you guys ever watched The Wire.
Yeah, I did.
If you're
Baltimore
able
Corruption.
if you're able to sit down and watch all 5 seasons of The Wire back to back, like binge it because it's out, it's done. You're able to realize that it's so perfectly kind of like structured and written. It's like a 5-act play almost. Each season is its own act, and everything by season 5 comes together in the most beautiful way possible. And I feel like with something like Andor, because when I was first watching the Wire, the first season was really hard to get through. And like I said, it wasn't until like towards the end of the season when things just start clicking and you start understanding who the characters were and how they interacted with each other and what their role in the overall story was, that the show became good. But those first 8 episodes were rough. But after you get past that, you become so engrossed in the story that it becomes masterful. It's literally one of the best TV shows ever written.
So what I'm getting here is that I don't have a long enough attention span to be able to watch television anymore.
Well, it's not that. It's that we don't have enough episodes out to really, I think, fairly judge the show yet.
Right.
how many do you think we need?
Well, I think that we need to get through at least like the first 6 or 7 episodes, right?
Yeah, we just judge Rings of Power based on
on
same thing.
on
But
yeah,
Rings of
yeah.
Power is an hour-long episode. These are half-hour episodes. So
That's fair.
you need to look at them as like every 2 episodes is like one regular episode. But I would even argue that like because they're structured in 3s, like you need to have at least like 3 trilogies worth of
Well,
stuff
that's
before you
actually
can fairly judge it.
yeah, that's actually Gilroy's whole thing, right? In fact,
Yeah.
the second season is structured that way. You have you have directors that are going to direct 3 episodes, and that's going to be their episodes, and the next director comes in, does 3 episodes, the next director, and so on and so on.
Yeah. This
So-
should have been more of like a mini series type thing where you have like 4 episodes that are 90 minutes each. And so like we get like these entire arcs instead of like splitting the arcs up between 3 episodes, because like, if you watch the first like episodes 4 and 5, nothing really feels like it happens in those episodes because they end at like the act break, right? But if you watch episodes 1 through 3 all in one sitting, you can see the overarching storyline within those 3 episodes, and it pays off by the end, right? Because you have like the big action scene and you have like everything come to a head. So I feel like you have to judge these in rounds of 3 episodes as opposed to episode by episode.
But how am I to do that if even by the end of that one episode I don't want to continue it? Like it's like there isn't that desire to continue watching.
You wait until the whole season has come out, and then you go back and you.
So it's our fault. It's our fault.
No, it's not your fault. It's not your fault. I'm
my
saying
brain's
that.
just too small, I guess.
My brain
Matthew.
is too small for the show.
No.
Are you saying I'm stupid? What's going on?
This is entirely.
Look,
Disney's
I watch
fault.
Rick and Morty, and I totally understand it. Okay?
I know, me too.
But it's done for a reason. The structure, and Matt, I already know where you're going. The structure's there because they have to have this show play out over the course of several months. They need that because they have to keep people coming back to their streaming service, and they think Star Wars and Marvel is the way to do that. But at the same time, they're destroying those fan bases by giving us these shows that are, structured in such a way that they are disinteresting.
Yeah, I'll say this: like as with their current release schedule,
Uninteresting, not disinteresting.
like this show, because it's so different from all the other Star Wars we've gotten, it's going to be looked down upon and largely ignored by the people who want like the pretty stuff and the action and things like that. But I feel like once all the episodes of the show are out and people have a chance to actually sit down and watch it from episode 1 to episode 12, people's opinions about the show are going to evolve over time, because I feel like this show more than any other Star Wars is a more mature Star Wars, and it's more interesting to me because like it shows a different aspect, kind of like how Marvel did like the street level shows and the cosmic shows and like the mystic shows and stuff like that. This is a different slice of the Star Wars universe that we don't normally get. Yeah, I
feel like I'm being talked down to right now. I only like the pretty stuff, Matthew. Is that what you're saying? I just like the pretty stuff. I don't want the...
Dude, I was very critical of Kenobi. I've been critical of Book of Boba Fett. But like for some reason this show like this is just my style of storytelling. Like I like the deliberately paced political intrigue and espionage and spy stuff. And that's Tony Gilroy's house.
He's got his hand raised.
But I'm sorry.
I was like, I'd like to jump in, please. Thank you.
Yeah, real quick. So let me get this straight, and I'm not laughing. I mean, I am, but I'm not really. I mean, well, I am. But
backpedal, bro.
It's so one of the things that this gets a lot of credit for is how beautiful it is. So you just got done telling us, well, people aren't going to like it because it's not beautiful. You just like the pretty things. I'm like, that's one of the only compelling things that's a part of this show is that it's kind of cinematically good to look at.
It is definitely. It's very.
I meant pretty in terms of like action, things exploding and stuff like that.
Okay.
Are you saying that I only like Michael Bay things because they have explosions in them?
I'm saying
I feel like I'm being talked down to.
That's why
I'm saying
general
audiences like require like stuff to explode in every episode.
Are you calling me a general audience? How dare you?
How dare you, Matthew?
Don't you know who I am?
I am the general audience. I have no problem admitting that. I am an absolute plebe when it comes to watching stuff. So
I like explosions just like the next person, but I also like cerebral things.
Yeah.
Like have you anybody ever seen that?
I would say Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul are cerebral. And guess what? I didn't feel bored by those episodes that were setting up for a longer term thing.
I was just about to say the exact same thing. Breaking Bad, Better Call Saul, Travelers. I don't know. Have you guys ever seen that show?
Yeah, Travelers. Yeah, that was unfortunate that show got canceled. But but we just mentioned two better shows. One of which Diego Luna's in, Narcos. Both of those two shows were perfect, and they were deliberately paced, but they kept you engaged. The characters were interesting. The stories were being filled out through the episodes. And I love you, Matt, but this one I don't know yet. If we get to the end of this,
nerd fight.
One of my arguments here is that these episodes were cut by Lucasfilm and Disney to be half-hour episodes when they were meant to be 90-minute miniseries style episodes. So the fact that like if you take an episode of Narcos, it's structured as an hour-long episode, but the half-hour episodes of Andor aren't structured as half-hour episodes. They're meant to be 90-minute episodes.
That's a very fair point.
I do get that.
But I'll ask this question. So that information you just imparted to us, or you just gave us, is sorry, Hogan. That's public knowledge. I should have known that these 3 episodes are supposed to be 1 episode. And again, we're talking about Tony Gilroy. So couldn't he have fleshed out each of those episodes differently so that they would have been more interesting and engaging?
Honestly, I think that he wrote 4 movies, and Kathleen Kennedy came in and carved them up into 30-minute episodes.
Okay.
To fill it out over the
Because he
course
could have
of,
easily
like,
done
2
a
months.
part. This is part 1, part 2, part 3. Like
You guys,
could
real
name
quick,
something. You know,
We've said Kathleen Kennedy too many times. If we say it one more time, Doomcock's going to enter the chat. So we got to be cool. Stop saying that name.
Well, we have to say it into a mirror at midnight.
That's what it is. Good.
Yeah. So we got a super chat here from Dennis Wright for $4.99. Hey, I get where you're coming from, Kadish. There are other critics that like this show too. I just don't like prequels because Andor dies. You know, like that is the problem with prequels. But I feel like this show, because we get to see Luthen and Mon Mothma and the intrigue in Coruscant, and we get to see like other planets and the genesis of the rebellion. I feel like it's more than just Andor. It's something that kind of like gives us a pathway into seeing how the setup for the actual original trilogy came about, and I like that type of thing. I do want to get your guys' opinion though on the whole like LGBTQ subplot in episodes 4 and 5. Odin, did you pick up on that, and what did you think about it?
Actually, because this show is very forgettable for me, I don't really remember enough about it. So is there something you can mention that could maybe remind me?
Maybe my brain is too small because I didn't know there
It was
an
such a
LGBT
small
thing.
little thing. I mean, I picked up on it. It was when
It was very subtle.
it was when Andor's talking to the dude about looking at all his crap out there outside the fire by the fire pit, and
I figured.
and he's telling them who's who, and he basically says when the one girl walks out of the tent and she goes, "That's such and such," but she already is.
Yeah, he's
got a
like,
blanket with her or
don't
whatever,
think
but-
about sleeping with her because she's
Yeah,
already
'cause-
got like a bunkmate. And it turns out that the leader, the girl leader, and like the Indian girl are lesbians together.
Oh, I didn't even pick up
and
on
they're
that.
in a relationship.
Now that you mentioned
and-
that guy, I thought that guy was going to be like revealed as gay.
Oh,
but,
he probably
you know.
is. They just
Yeah.
kind of inserted it in there for no reason. It was a complete throwaway line.
Yeah, just
very
a lot
subtle.
of shows do that nowadays. They just go,
Yeah.
you know what? Let's just throw in that this random character that you've seen for 3 seconds is just, is part of this community. Discovery does that randomly. Like a character dies, it goes, Captain so and so and his husband. You're like, I don't know. Is that like
Why? Why?
Are you doing the LGBTQ community a favor? Or I don't understand. What's the purpose of that?
Bury your gaze.
Well, what's funny is that Disney, like, I could see them saying like, okay, if you want to include this, it has to be like super subtle, because we have Disney Plus subscribers in countries that don't allow for like gay stuff to be on air. So like I could totally see them kind of like jiggering things to kind of like slide it in there as opposed to being very blatant about it. Because, remember Rise of Skywalker, where the big deal was like the lesbian kiss at the end, and then it's like they had to cut that out in like half the foreign territories because of censorship issues.
Yep.
Just absolutely no.
It was
like,
it was very
standards.
random and just inserted in there, and it absolutely has nothing to do with anything to do with the storyline or
That
plot.
adds up.
It's very it's just an insert. It's very strange. But
Well, I'll
whatever.
be interested to see your guys' take if you bother to watch episode 6, because I feel like they've set up so much stuff with like the eye, where basically they have like this weird like meteor storm that kind of goes by the planet, and that's what they're going to use to kind of like escape through when they do their heist. So I feel like episode 6 is going to be very action heavy. We're going to see a lot of stuff pay off that was set up in these previous 2 episodes. And I also feel like once the heist is over, we're going to see Andor's character fully commit to the rebellion, and we're also going to see the Imperials start cracking down on stuff, and so like a lot of stuff is going to start happening going into episodes 7, 8, and 9.
So I bet you love the line. I bet you love the line when it was like, some of the workers, it would raise their morale. I bet you love that line.
Well, I mean, like
them wanting to go see the eye.
Well, but that was that character's whole like motivation for doing that, right? Where
Yes.
basically he needs to get all the Imperials out of.
But they're talking
area,
about their
so-
feelings, so that's why
Yeah.
I was like, you probably love that line because they're talking about their feelings. I'm
I
kidding.
don't know if they were talking about their feelings. I mean, like basically, he was like make everyone work, and they're like, dude, we want to watch this once in a lifetime
Exactly.
event, and so he was like,
It would
okay,
raise our
well,
morale, ergo our feelings.
No. I think you're off here. Okay, let me tell you something. I actually like that too because I've always wondered why you would serve the Empire. Like that's showing that they actually have some kind of like connection emotionally to their job and what they do. So it
Well, it
makes
was
sense.
meant to be just a joke, but I guess it was a bad joke. I'm sorry.
I was amused, Odin, so you're fine.
Well, I appreciate that.
My brain is too
Yeah.
small to comprehend your jokes.
Oh boy.
Odin, don't
No,
quit your day job.
you've turned me
Small
into an
brain.
elitist, Matthew. How dare
All right, so do you guys have any predictions for the rest of the season?
I
Matt
do.
Vader 74. What do you think is
So-
going to happen?
Next episode, they're gonna go down and they're gonna try to pull off the heist, and then at the very last moment, after somebody's dead and stuff, Cad Bane and Bosk are gonna swoop in and steal all the money that they just stole from the heist, and it's gonna be all for nothing. And then we're gonna go into part 3 of the 90-minute movies. So, and then it's gonna set up a rivalry between Cad Bane and Andor going into the next season. That's what I think is gonna happen.
I just hope we get more blue milk cereal.
Yeah, blue milk
Culture,
cereal.
what do you think? Do you have any predictions for the next couple episodes?
I do, yeah. I predict I won't be watching them.
All right, scratch Culture off of the guest list next time.
Thanks, Matt.
All right, Brian from the Popcast, do you have any predictions for the next couple episodes?
It's interesting that you say that like it was supposed to be these like 60 or 70 minute or whatever shows, and it was cut down by the studio because I think that it might change my opinion of it a little bit if it was cut at different times, because this last episode was like the straw that broke my back because nothing happened. And I can only say how awesome the visuals are so many times before, I'm going to shoot myself. So I'm like, okay, well, nothing is happening in the story. But if this had actually ended like when it was supposed to end, like say 30 minutes from now in the series, maybe I would have had a different opinion of it. As far as predictions go, I don't know. I'm up there with Culture Casino. I can see that taking place. But I also don't plan on watching it next week right away. Like I've been watching it every week when it came out because we're doing reviews. And now that I'm not. I'm just going to watch it whenever I get around to it. And I feel good about that.
Good for you. All right, Odin, can your puny brain give us any predictions about the next couple episones?
He was waiting for that. He was waiting for that.
How dare you? How
I
dare
I've
really
been
you?
playing that for 20 minutes now.
Well, hey, turnabout is fair play. So, I would say that I think the next episode is going to be them getting ready for the actual heist itself. I think the following episode after that, the heist will actually start. The episode after that will be halfway through the heist. The episode after that, the heist will reach its end point, but something dramatic will happen that will be wrong and off, which will then lead to the next episode where they're finally escaping from the heist, but someone has died or something to that effect. And then it's all going to eventually get to a point where something happens.
Fair enough.
And
All
in
right,
the
we have-
meantime, the guy, what's his name, Cyril Karn, is still eating cereal for breakfast.
All right, we have a super chat from Mercer Crate for $2. Andor is full of nuance. Where is my prize? LOL. Your prize is that you get to watch the next episode when it comes out. Okay, so we have a little bit of extra time, and I know that Culture Casino
Yes.
really wanted to talk about She-Hulk. So let's talk about She-Hulk.
Get to talk about that real quick.
Yeah. Culture, you love She-Hulk. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that show?
Love it.
Wow.
What? Look, I can't get the boss to watch it, right? So we made a pact. She's gonna binge it, right, to catch up, so that next week we can do our joint review, which will be the third one, because she was out after like the second or third
Well,
episode.
what did you think of this previous episode where we got Daredevil's reveal? The new Daredevil.
Let me tell you, they destroyed one of my favorite characters. We talked about this a little backstage. This is Daredevil, right? The street level guy that I love, right? There's a handful of Marvel characters that I could identify no closer to than Daredevil, Punisher, everybody in Hell's Kitchen. I'm sorry, that's just kind of that's the street level stuff that I like. It's why the Netflix series, the shows, were so good. And you and I can disagree about Luke Cage, and I thought Jessica was okay, and Iron Fist was a complete waste of everything. But those first two shows, right? They were phenomenal. This particular episode did more to destroy my impression of Matt than it probably not you, Matt, but.
Matt Murdock, yeah.
Murdock, yeah.
It took me a second. I was like, "Oh, are we bashing Matt again?" What?
No.
That's what I'm here for.
It did. It destroyed him. It destroyed him in my eyes, which I thought was unnecessary. And while people say, "Well, in the recent comic books," and I don't care, you can go off on that, and that's the whole thing we were pointing at that they were going to do is to get to these. They're going to skip by all this great material, and they're going to throw us into that crap because they control that crap. And that's the audience they want, which is dead because nobody buys books anymore. But anyway, so with She-Hulk, this particular episode, it kind of took some of the mystery out of Matt's abilities and stuff like that. And it's fine. She did something by accident that she discovered accidentally that would be the only way to defeat him, which is to sonic boom him with her hands and make him create a bunch of noise. Right? She did not know that ahead of time. She didn't know he was blind. She's already interacted with this character. She should have already picked up on the snarkiness that he was confronting her with, because she just faced him in court, which again made no sense. And a lot of people have pointed this out. But does he have a law degree? I mean, does he have a law practice? Is he able to practice everywhere? Yeah. Can he practice in California? Don't know. It never entered into the conversation before. And so, let's set aside the fact that they don't know how to write a lawyer show. They don't know how to rom-com. They don't know how to write an action series. Let's just set all that over here. All right. But at the same time, you had things that we talked about over on Comics' channel the Thursday night, where it's like she has no regard for her surroundings, right? That's ultimately what it is. And that's at all times, right? And of course, it's our comeuppance from the first episode where she says, well, I control my anger all the time. Baloney. So, this particular episode just irritated me to no end because, again, no, and she's never had to pay for the consequences, which is one of the biggest problems with these Marvel shows overall. There are no consequences to any of these people behaving badly, heroes or not. There's just none. There's no consequences. There's no stakes. This is, the closest we got to stakes was her being lined up at the end of the episode in front of those blue rifle guys. That was it. And I don't even know who those blue rifle guys are. I mean,
those blue rifle guys couldn't hurt her because she's a Hulk.
Well, my thought when she's fighting with Daredevil, right? All I think about is, as a lawyer, you would think she would be more astute to all the damage that she's creating in public while fighting something.
Yeah.
It's like, how many cars did she destroy? She literally broke a street in half, right? I mean, with her Hulk smash.
She destroyed a parking garage.
Yeah.
She
I mean,
threw a car.
At most millions of dollars worth of damage. And I know we're not supposed to think about that kind of stuff in superhero shows, but the fact that she's a lawyer and she's defending other superheroes for things like this, it just kind of immediately popped into my head.
And they establish she's self-aware. Like every moment, it's fourth wall breaking self-awareness. Right. So
real quick culture. They mentioned in this episode that the Sokovia Accords were repealed. When did that happen? Was that
No,
in,
off
in
screen,
Far From Home?
off screen, baby. It's been in none of these shows. Yeah, that
So
was
in No Way Home, they didn't repeal those. It was just like
no, I don't
Not that I
recall it being
remember.
mentioned, not at all. And that
so
was the
a
only-
throwaway line
Yeah.
in this show that nobody's watching basically changes everything.
Everything.
In the Marvel universe.
Because the only two things Marvel I have not watched are Shang-Chi and Eternals, so I'm assuming it didn't happen in either of
No.
those. So okay.
No.
No, nothing happened in those movies actually.
Exactly
Well,
why
that's
I
not true.
watch it.
There's a giant planet-sized
Guy
robot sticking out of the ocean.
But
Yeah.
nothing
You know,
happened still.
Oh, is that
Just
Eternals?
let's be real.
So,
Yeah.
so Brian, one of the things that really turned me off about this episode was they opened with a previously on that showed gratuitously like the twerking scene
Yes.
over and over and over again.
On purpose.
I was like,
They did it
why
on
do you
purpose.
want to remind us of this?
And also, not just that,
Um,
previously on my show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so like another part to this is that the only guy that will willingly sleep with Jin is a blind man. Do you have any thoughts on this episode?
First off, also any guy that buys her French fries
Yeah, splits French fries.
or
Splits.
splits French fries, easy peasy.
She is
It's
kind
not,
of-
it's now a thing in my house. When I ask my wife if she wants French fries, that means
Well,
Oh,
it should be
getting
noted
lucky.
that guy did not willingly sleep with her. He was playing a con on her.
Yes.
he was
because,
paid
because
to.
we all
I got it.
we all
And
know
made
that,
her
that-
his
that-
shapoopy. That's
and
what
we all
happened.
know that that's actually Doomcock out of his disguise.
So speaking of, Doomcox makes his MCU entrance.
yeah,
That's right.
he does.
He's officially in the show
He's
now.
officially a supervillain in the MCU.
Congratulations to Doomcock. Also, as far as your lawyer thing, culture, so actually lawyers can represent their clients for one case only out of state in California.
Okay.
So-
Is that really a thing?
Yeah.
In California, you can have an out-of-state lawyer represent you in one case.
That's so
Uh,
weird. For
Well,
your entire
Matt-
life
Matt shows up
during a
in-
year? Like, what is this?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
think it's
it
per-
sounds very because so now like another client wants him to represent them in California. How are we gonna?
Well,
are we
it's
gonna
per client. Yeah.
okay.
Well,
all right.
well, you know that the writers were just like Matt Murdock's a lawyer, so he can just lawyer wherever he wants. Like, I don't think any thought was put
But I
into
thought the
this.
same thing. And then I remember this episode of Boston Legal where they were from New York and they went to represent someone in California, and that was a thing. So
Oh, so because it was in Boston Legal, you know.
no.
that that's the actual
I looked
law.
it up back then. I was a huge
Okay.
Boston Legal head.
Okay.
We call ourselves Boston heads. We're really into Boston Legal.
Yeah, I thought that meant a whole other thing, but no, we're not
Denny
going to talk about that on this.
Denny Crane. No, it's
so
real.
you love the band. You love the band Boston. You like the Red Sox. Is that
Yeah.
what a Boston head is?
Also, I've had legal proceedings,
Bruins.
and you can have a lawyer come out and say, but that doesn't matter. The thing is, Doomcock makes his entrance. Nothing of value really does happen this entire episode, except for it seems like they take Daredevil, which in my opinion was the only good thing that came out of the Netflix shows, and they just sort of make him worse somehow.
Yep.
And also on the same note, it is infuriating that the Netflix shows are now part of the MCU, but Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. has still never been addressed. So as an Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. fan, I'm like, oh, so I guess we're just ignoring the 7 seasons of television you guys made.
Well,
But we're going to go ahead and admit the Netflix shows right into the MCU. Oh, come on in, guys. No, Colson, you stay out there. It's so maddening, man.
it is. It's insane. Are the Blue Rifle guys? Is that going to be Spear?
No, that's
Yeah,
damage
I mean-
control.
Okay, all right, that's fine.
Wait, the wrestling group, Damage Control. I thought that those are women.
What? No, damage control is an organization.
It's also a current wrestling thing. And
Oh, I didn't know that. I'm not a wrestling fan. I watch Rick and Morty. Okay, I'm too big brain for wrestling.
I watch Rick and Morty and wrestling. So
Okay.
And why are we attacking wrestling right now? It's
No.
the only successful media property on television right now. WWE is the only thing that actually went positively northward in the big tech and entertainment drops that we've had
I've
this
never
year.
seen a single episode since I
We're
was like
Sure.
9.
we're supposed to be talking about 25% different Doomcock right now.
Okay, so that was definitely Doomcock. We're
That was
all
definitely
under
Doomcock.
it was
But it's
literally
double
his voice.
Doomcock.
I was expecting him to say like, "No,
Please.
Catherine, sit down."
Well, I was
No.
expecting the second guy to be Harvey.
Harvey Cthulhu. Oh man!
And it was funny because Doomcock got on Twitter right after that episode aired, and he's like, "Why is my name trending on Twitter?" Like he completely missed it, and we had to go and be like, "Dude, you're in She-Hulk now." Real quick, we got a super chat from JT Gunn /
Yeah.
Night with Cap for $2. Thank you, sir. Hey nerds, just checking in. Have a great Saturday. Thank you, JT. Appreciate
Thanks,
all
JT.
that you do for us. Odin, do you think it's ironic that She-Hulk's only weakness is slut shaming?
Oh, this show is so I totally just agree with everything that's just been said, especially with the there's really it's truly destruction of the character of Matthew Murdock, because
Matt Murdock.
the one sequence that just makes it completely cringe is the walk of shame. That was the biggest thing, because it's like, okay, so you're having him do the walk of shame. This whole show is been portraying men, almost every single man, as evil unless they are gay or want to sleep with or like
Jen.
like yeah, like unless Jen likes the guy, right? Basically, those are the only non-toxic men in the entire thing. And as that was happening, I was thinking to myself, oh yeah, I remember all the times in all of the previously Netflix shows or any other male-led show where that happened, where they just, had the walk of shame for, and just degraded. Oh wait, they didn't do that. Oh, okay. So wait, what is this show? And then, mentioning the very beginning of the show, right? Saying previously on my show. To me, that was actually a perfect moment, because the fact was again, they're owning it. They're saying previously on my show. And what's the first thing they show? The twerking.
Yep.
And they show everything else that's like cringe from the show.
Yep.
And so it's like, either this has to be one of two things. Either they are so full of themselves, they don't realize just how terrible the show actually is, or they are purposefully trolling everybody.
That's what they're doing.
No, that's what people do.
Just to get people talking about it,
Yeah, no, it's great. And it's working. I mean, it's working.
Yeah,
Not really.
I'm really looking forward to the next episode now, because I want to get the reveal of the rest of the intelligentsia, because it's going to be 25% different goatee versions of Gary and Jeremy and Ryan.
It's gonna be Gary.
It's going to be fucking fantastic.
I want to see
it's going to blow
a skinny guy with a beard and glasses.
Yeah.
And red hair come out and be like, She-Hulk, we've been waiting for you.
Have him wearing a red devil shirt icon on with little horns.
I'm gonna lose it. I hope they do it. They should just lean into it. Like lean into it and do the whole thing.
Just burn it all down.
And the funny part is they think that if they did something like that, they think they would be sticking it to everybody, right? But
no, dude, we live in your head. That's what I've gotten out of this whole series. Like, we live in these people's heads 24/7, and it's free real estate, baby.
Absolutely.
That is,
because what do the actresses say? Hey, I got paid.
That's right.
I just want to highlight this comment from Joker, where I have never done the walk of shame. No guy I know has ever done the walk of shame.
No.
And to do the walk of shame implies that you made a mistake and you're shameful of having made it. So what were they communicating there with Daredevil? Was that like he regrets sleeping with She-Hulk?
Yeah, but I totally get that. I think I've done the walk of shame, if I'm going to be totally honest. I've literally crawled out of a window and ran down the block with my pants over my shoulder to get to my truck, because I didn't want to be seen there. So I think I have done the walk of shame, but I don't think.
I think the She-Hulk writers don't know what the walk of shame is.
Well,
right.
Well, I mean, honestly, it made no sense. And I think Odin said this last night. And it's the first thing that pissed me off about the walk of shame was that he's not wearing his boots.
Oh yeah.
Well, I mean, when girls do the walk of shame, they're always carrying their shoes.
I know, because those are uncomfortable shoes. Yeah. Again, I think Odin pointed that out. I was mad because I'm like, you know what? First of all, I don't think Matt wants to be seen in broad daylight sporting his suit, not in Hell's Kitchen. You know, and again, he's daredeviling it up in a territory that he doesn't know. Do you know why he's so effective in Hell's Kitchen? Because it's his backyard. Dude's lived there his whole life. He's just so now we're assuming, and again, I mean, this goes back to the lawyer thing that I didn't know about. I'm gonna have to look that up, by the way, Brian, because I'm like thinking, well, what happens if they have an appeal? You know, lawyer only could go there for the one case, but now there's an appeal. Is that considered the same case? Is it?
Yeah.
See, there's a lot of nuance here that I need to
He's
understand.
gonna
There is
fact
a-
check you. He's gonna fact check you.
Yeah, you can go ahead. It's a real thing now.
I believe
also
you.
She-Hulk would have known who the opposing counsel would have been. There's
Right.
all types of paperwork and stuff.
Right.
Yeah.
Real quick, we have a super chat from Neil for $4.99. Harvey Birdman is a better She-Hulk series. It's actually funny,
Wow.
pokes fun of an established universe in a clever fashion. It also has good characters. So Harvey Birdman, attorney at law, that is a funny little cartoon. So thank you, Neil, for pointing that out. Then we got Setlick Gaming for $5. Excellent show. Live long and prosper. Thank you.
Sir.
Appreciate the $5. And then we have the name I can't pronounce for $4.99. Hi, gents. Hi, culture. At NYCC going to Star Trek Universe panel.
Oh,
I enjoyed She-Hulk episode 8 because Daredevil was in it. He is wonderful.
that's true.
Enjoy
Hey,
the New York Comic Con.
Yeah, if you film that, send me the video. I'll send you like $10 over PayPal, whatever.
Yeah, I've been to the New York Comic Con before. It is massive. It's a lot of fun. So I hope she has a good
Sounds
time
like-
over there.
Sounds like something fun to do.
Yeah.
Thank you for the super
All right.
chats, everybody.
And
All right,
and-
guys. So
oh,
let's give our final thoughts on Daredevil and She-Hulk. Also, let me know what you think about the new mustard and ketchup outfit for Daredevil. I don't like it at all.
She said that. Oh my.
But Matt Vader 74. Final thoughts.
I don't like the mustard and ketchup outfit, but I'm also thinking in my head that 25% different drunk 3PO would look really good in it. So they should have him show up. So yeah.
All right, Culture Casino. Final thoughts, and what did you think of the ketchup and mustard outfit?
Oh, I didn't like it at all, but that you guys probably knew that was coming. Yeah, what was the other part of that question? Because I'm like
Final
still
thoughts.
raging in my head.
Final thoughts.
My final thoughts are this show has gotten worse over time progressively from the first episode. This is that show that just lowers the bar as you go along. This last episode, even the only thing that elevated it was Charlie Cox, and that in only in like the most superficial of ways, because again, you know, he in my show. I mean, there was, again, they are so self-aware. And anyway, it's terrible. I have to watch one more episode. It's 9 episodes. This episode 8 or
This
7?
is the penultimate episode. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think
all
there's
right.
one more.
All right. Yeah. Okay. So there's only one more. So I only have to suffer one more. And then the boss and I are going to do our review on it. And I will never watch it again.
Fair enough. Brian, final thoughts, and what do you think of Daredevil's outfit?
I do not prefer that color combination. That's all I have to say about that. I don't mind it though; it's comics accurate, so it's fine. But I don't prefer it. And as far as the show goes, I can't wait for the last episode. It's gonna be great.
All right.
That's no
Odin.
pun intended. I'm not even being sarcastic. It's gonna be great because it's gonna be one more week of me getting to crap all over this show. I'm not gonna watch season 2. I'm gonna finish out season 1. I'm going to have a great review. The reviews are way more entertaining than the actual show itself. I have a great time talking about it. So, yeah, it's going to be a good time.
Nice. Odin, final thoughts on She-Hulk, and what did you think of Daredevil's outfit?
Yeah, the suit sucked. I mean, it didn't even. I mean, just logically, it doesn't make any sense either for him to be wearing a light color like that. I don't know. That's just. I'm not a comic expert, so I don't know if that has any relevance to the comics at all. It just for me,
Well,
it's
that was the first design of Daredevil.
Okay.
Had that color scheme to it.
Okay, gotcha. Well, the first, and I'm assuming that there was developments after, because again, if your whole thing is trying to be stealthy at night, not the best color to be wearing. The show is an absolute atrocity. Everything about it is just, I just hate. And it's another show that I unfortunately have to watch because of Friday Night Tights, and that's something we talk about. And that's the only reason why I'm even still watching it, because it is just complete and utter garbage. And I hope and pray it doesn't get a second season, because I really don't want to watch anymore.
All right,
I'm actually
so,
hoping to get the second season just to see what happens.
So this is Daredevil's original costume. Right
Okay.
here.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit accurate, but at the same time, why?
I mean, it's
Yeah.
pretty comics accurate. I don't like the colors. I definitely prefer the red, but that's not. I guess the red suit isn't actually comics accurate, is it?
Well, it is, but later on in Daredevil's run, it's a little bit more accurate. Also, like if you get into the Frank Miller stuff, like the whole ninja suit and stuff like that.
More modern stuff.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, thank you all for coming out today. I want to thank my expert panel and everyone who joined us in chat, and especially those who gave us super chats. We got a lot of super chats today. Thank you guys so much for that. We really appreciate the support. Odin, tell people where they can find you and what you're up to.
Yeah, you can find me over at OMB Reviews on YouTube, Odyssey, Rumble. I have a live show every Tuesday and Saturday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern Time. So I should be having one tonight with we have fall break this week, so there might be some changes to the schedule for a couple of days, but I usually keep people informed on my Discord server. So follow me over there, and it's always wonderful being on. So thank you again for having me.
Fantastical.
Yes, Brian, tell people where they can find out more about you and what you're up to this week.
We have like 6 channels now, but we shut down. we just recently shut down the fantasy channel. It was so weird. So we made a DC specific channel and a Star Wars specific channel, so we wouldn't have to post it on our main live channel. And the DC channel is doing great, like big numbers. The fastest growing channel we've ever had. It's called DC Unleashed. It's great. But the fantasy channel, somehow we had negative subscribers. So we're like, okay, so this isn't working out. I don't know if there's a bug or something in YouTube. No one cares about fantasy. So we shut that down. We're back on Popcast Live. So you can find us at the Popcast or the Popcast Live. And then you can also look up our Unleashed network, which is like DC Unleashed, Marvel Unleashed, Star Wars Unleashed, those channels. And Twitter, Popcast Guys.
Fantastic. All right, Culture Casino. Where can people find out more about you and what are you up to this week?
Culture Casino is my channel, my social, whatever. This is where I am. You can find me everywhere. It's everywhere Odin is, and Rumble, Odyssey, YouTube. I think we all cover the same circles. I'm going to be focusing one exclusive on Rumble now every week. So be on the lookout for that. It gives me a lot of free reign over there to talk about the things I want to talk about. That might upload that to Odyssey as well. But you can see me every weekday for the 6-minute daily. You can catch me lurking in chats, including Odin's chat sometimes when he's on. I'm quiet because I'm usually working, but you can catch me just everywhere. Comics Division, a couple nights a week, my own channel, a couple lives. I'm gonna let's see, what's today, Saturday, gonna be over on Scott's Sporkin News podcasts thing tonight. So yeah, I'm everywhere and occasionally here, which I want to say thanks for having me, because it's been a minute and I had a good time. And I might watch Andor just to come in and complain for the very last.
Watch it in threes. All right,
okay,
now we
yes,
I will.
in threes.
Now that I know the proper method for consuming product,
Yes.
I will consume said product and then focus on next product and consume.
It'll help your tiny brain process everything.
Wow.
Thank you.
You guys see what I have to deal with every day? Like
I love
literally
it.
every day.
part of me kind of just wants to somehow download through legal means the episode and actually do a 3-part
Stitch it
cut
together. Yeah.
yeah,
Stitch it together.
and actually see if it makes it better, just to be
Yeah,
Matt, I
I'm
did
going to-
exactly what you
should.
told me to do and it didn't work.
Yeah. Well, we were planning on doing that.
Matt, you're a genius.
Or
So-
that maybe, but
We were planning on taking Rings of Power and downloading the entire season and then cutting that into only the most relevant parts and seeing how long it really is
It's like
and how
2
much it
minutes.
should have cost, because it's about $1 million a minute. So
So that's like $12 though, bro. I mean, 12 minutes.
2 minutes maybe.
I believe you'll be able to get an hour out of an 8-hour.
I don't know, man. Oof. But that's not a half bad idea. I think we should try to do that and just stitch it together.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'll hand it to my
So,
editor and say, "Can you stitch these 3 episodes together and see if they make any sense at all?"
So Matt Vader 74, where can people find out more about you? What are we up to this week? And yeah,
Just really quick, I want to address this really quick. I know, and thank you very much, Marshall, for telling me I have the best beard. But I do have to say The goal was always to grow this thing simply to be able to compete with Odin and Culture and Gary in the YouTube beard game, and I'm glad I'm there.
I have trimmed mine recently too, so I think
yeah.
yours is now
I had
longer
to.
than
Yeah, I had to.
I'm in the conversation now, and that makes me very
Yes.
happy. So yeah.
It fits you too. I was seeing you in Vegas. That's proper. It looks
What's going
good.
on? Is it only bearded people allowed on this show? Is that what
we
it
all.
is?
I just
think so.
recognize that we all have facial
Very
hair,
bearded.
and it looks
Everyone
good.
always has facial hair. It's like Matt's like, who do we get on the show? Okay,
So,
no,
but-
not him. He has.
It's
no
our
hair.
way of
beard.
saying no women allowed.
Chrissy Bear didn't have much of a beard when she was on.
Yeah.
But,
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Well,
Well, maybe she is someone's beard.
That's what I was going to say. Well done, Brian. That's
That could
where I was
work.
headed too. Yeah.
I don't think Huffman has a beard. I think he's the
No.
only clean shaven one.
Yeah, but he's the one that
That's
has like
right.
a legitimate job and is successful.
Yeah.
Right. The rest of us are just YouTube degenerates.
Yeah. Teaching the children of the future, not a legitimate job. Yeah.
I'm about to get a Superman tramp stamp because 30 people voted on it. That's how much of a YouTube degenerate I am. I'm gonna get a permanent tattoo because of a Twitter poll.
Yeah. I avoided my permanent tattoo with my subscriber challenge, but that's okay. You can find me at right down here on I'm Matt Vader 74 almost on everything, and here on the Salty Nerd channel, and on our Discord. I host a lot of live streams over there, a lot of watch parties. Like today, right after this, I'm going into like 4 hours of watch party. We're going to watch Splice, and then we're going to watch The Headhunter, and then we're going to do an episode of Battlestar Galactica, all in preparation for next week's podcast recordings. So it'll be fun.
So Matt Vader 74, the people watching might not know this, but this is actually your stream. You're the one who's in charge of the content
I guess.
planning. Next week is the last episode of Rings of Power. What are we going to be covering on the show after that's over?
I think we're going to probably cover some more Andor stuff, but we'll probably end up doing a little more topical stuff. We'll see what's in the news, and we'll see what's going on going forward. So I'll have to think about it.
And next week, we're going to be having Joker Voice on the show as one of our expert panelists, which should be a lot of fun. I want to thank everyone who gave us super chats today. Gavin Blackburn, Fluffy Panda, Mexican Iron Man, Joker Voice, Dennis Wright, Jillian N, Mercer Crate, JT Gunn, Neil Setlick Gaming, and thank you all so much for your support. We really appreciate that. We love that the people who show up for our live streams actually enjoy our content and want to help support us. And my Andor rant didn't turn off any of those potential super chat people to begin with. But thank you to our expert panel of nerds. And as always, you can join us next Saturday, same salty time, same salty channel. And stay salty, my friends.